Welcome to the Honest Psychologist podcast, where two licensed clinical psychologists have joined the chat. I'm Dr. Whitney Graff.
I'm Dr. Paige Hover. We bring our years of expertise to the conversations you're already having, breaking down the topics shaping culture, social media, and everyday life.
No psychobabble, just relatable discussions about how our minds work and why it matters.
Hello. Morning? Good morning.
Hey, Paige, how's it going?
It's going. How are you?
I'm good. We were just talking about how big my child and your dog were
Tiny.
when we brought them home.
Teeny tiny little peanuts.
Yeah, so my daughter was under 6 pounds.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
That's why she was the size. You swaddle them up in the hospital and they're like a little football. Because she was 2 ounces shy of 6 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, because she wasn't technically preemie by like a day and a half.
Oh, right.
So she was technically
a little early.
Yeah. She was a little early.
Yeah.
She could have used the extra 3 weeks just to bulk up a little bit.
Extra baking time.
Cultivate mass. Did you ever watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Not regularly. I would watch it like snippets here and there.
There was a season, I don't remember if it was like from season 3 to season 4 or something, but Mac gets really big and they're like, dude, what's going on with your weight? And he goes, I'm cultivating mass.
Oh, yeah. And my dog was the runt of the litter. She was the peanut.
Oh my gosh, my first dog, Abby, she was the runt too.
Yeah.
I didn't know Sierra was the runt.
Mm-hmm. That's why everybody asks if she's technically a standard Aussie, but everybody always assumes she's a mini because she's on the smaller side.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess now that I'm picturing her, I don't have that big of a frame of reference for Aussies, so that to me is the size that they are. But
no.
You're right, she's not a large dog.
No, she's on the smaller side for the breed. I remember when we were researching, we were expecting like 50 to 60 pounds and she's about 40, and we met a couple of other like adult Aussies and they were just tanks, just 60 pounds of tank, and I was like, oh gosh, okay.
Well, you gotta throw your weight around and get those sheep in line.
Yes
Right.
Yes, so she was, her parents weren't huge, but yeah, she was on the smaller side. She was a little peanut.
How old is she now?
She's going to be 11 in a couple days.
No.
Yeah, 11, but nobody believes me. Every time they're like, oh my God, how old is your puppy? I'm like, she's 11. And they're like, no.
I mean, my only hope is that because my dog and I walk so much, I'm like, well, whatever exercise can do for your longevity, that's what I'm hoping. It's like one of the few things I have control over is like, we're gonna keep exercising. But
it's crazy to see the decrease in walking. Like, she used to be a 3 mile a day kind of dog.
I believe that, yeah.
And now she's like 1.5, and it's like,
know.
Oh, stop.
We're a little bit like that too here. Yeah, Chase is. It depends on the day, but he's far happier at like 1.5 miles than he is at 3 miles.
Yep, for sure.
And then I mean, it's like I want to pay attention if he's having like he gets his joint, supplement every day, but I want to pay attention if it's like I don't want him to like walk in pain, but we still got to keep moving, keep the joints lubricated.
Yes, agreed.
Any other updates from you?
No.
I see you're publishing a lot of stuff on like burnout, and you had something up about the power of play, I think.
I did, yeah. Just trying to get more of my thoughts out there on that, noticing that, play is something that I think all of us are kind of craving a little bit more, and it doesn't have to be playing on the playground. It's whatever feels playful for you, just the idea of like creating or enjoying. I find that's really helpful in my own life when I'm dealing with my own stress. I'm actually polishing an article about what I did to manage my own anxiety this week, giving people an insight of, hey, therapists do it too, psychologists have to take care of their mental health too, and play is a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, what advice do you have for me? Because like I'm thinking yesterday, the weather was the exact right temperature. I don't know, it was like 68 degrees or something
yesterday.
It really was. And so my daughter and I just dragged this giant plastic tub of Duplos. It's like a hodgepodge of Duplos, Legos, and Mega Blocks that I got at a yard sale. We like dragged it out onto the patio. And my strategy, this is like my own style, I don't really want to build blocks, and I didn't tell her I was going to drag it out there. She was bringing her own stuff out, but then I just start sorting the blocks. So I'm like, oh, I'll put the one nubs here and the 4 nubs here. And she goes, Mama, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm just sorting it to see what's in here. And so I sort of surreptitiously, like, just because I'm handling them and getting them out and spread out, then she's like, oh, well, let's build something with this. But then here's where I get stuck. And I don't know what your advice is in terms of like play and like, I have to admit that I don't really like to play. I don't really like to build. So once we've gotten started on this, I'm like, great. But then honestly, I just want to sit back, because this just isn't my idea of a fun time. I don't feel like if you give me a bunch of blocks, I don't feel creative.
Yeah. I think I would say like take the pressure off to make it like creative or like play. Like as you were talking about it, I would say maybe the part that you enjoy about it is organizing. Like,
I'm not going to lie. I do enjoy organizing.
So I would shift the perspective or take less pressure off, just kind of go into it of like being drawn to whatever feels like enjoyable with that, and shifting the perspective that maybe you're not like, maybe there's too much pressure to create something or build, but you can organize them while she builds something, or you can put all the colors here, or you can, like that's play. There's no directive. It's just to kind of find enjoyment of that. And I think as adults, it's much harder for us to remember that, because as kids, they just go in and they follow whatever feels kind of fun or whatever they're wanting to do, versus I think as adults, we get this pressure to make something or build or create, when it's like, no, just organize them. Like, why not? Colors, shapes, take them down, do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, I really do see that. Because like right now you're sitting in my combination spare bedroom, office, and home of craft supplies. But I'm in the middle of an organizing project because I was frustrated with the closet. I dragged everything out. I'm trying to find a way to put everything back in so that you can actually get to stuff. And I'm not gonna lie, this does actually like bring me a certain sense of motivation. It's a problem, and I have not solved it yet. Everything is not going back in a good way. I have to take it all out again. But I actually am drawn to that. While we were playing blocks, it was like, oh God, and I try to like, I'm like, you need to detach from the outcome.
Yes.
Because I'm like, what do I make? I don't know how to make that. And like engineering, not a strong suit of mine. And so I'm having all these thoughts about it. And I ended up building an all yellow tower. And then my kid and I had an argument about the nature of art. Mama, you can't just build it all yellow.
You sure can.
I said, yes, I can. This is my banana building. She goes, no, it needs to have more colors.
That's her definition of art.
I forget what I said. I said something like, well, the nature of art is what is art, She's looking at me like I'm crazy, but I was like, well, this is what I felt like making, is an all yellow.
And that's kind of the point of play. I think it's like more about approaching things playfully with a little more flexibility or a little bit more freedom, to just like be in there. And it can be whatever, it doesn't have to have a specific outcome. Sometimes it's helpful if it does. Like if you want to cook, or if you have an idea of something you want to build, that can be considered play, but also just being present and being flexible is playful, like approaching life playfully.
Yeah. As you're saying it, I think it's kind of both. It's like, if I was going to choose the activity, I would sooner organize this room and, you know, spend an hour or two. I would listen to something in my headphones and I would do that. And that would feel like time well spent to me.
Yeah.
And there isn't, I don't know if it's play, but like it feels like, I don't know, it feels like something akin to play. That would be what I would choose.
Yep.
If I can't choose, or I guess maybe if I wanted to like stretch myself or something, it's like just mess around with blocks. Or it'll be the same thing if we get the paints out. Mama, you should paint something too.
Yep.
Oh God. You know, there's like this blank page in front of me and I don't know how to draw anything.
Yes.
You know.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can start playing with like patterns or just kind of see where it goes. But sometimes also that's just not your creative space. So that's okay too.
Yeah. If I must do it, it is probably a good exercise to release yourself from it and just try to just.
The whole idea around what I was talking about a little in that article is to not have to have a purpose with it. I think as adults, it's very hard for us to feel like we have to justify doing something with an outcome, with a product, with this helps. And I think that's really hard to do that when really you just, however you want to do it, whatever it is your playtime, you know, just being able to be present and just let it kind of come and go is good for you.
And where can listeners find your thoughts on these topics?
My Substack, Dr. Paige Hover. And I think the Substack is called Big Picture Psych, which is the same as my practice, but the handle is at Dr. Paige Hover.
At Dr. Paige Hover, Big Picture Psych.
Yeah.
Okay.
I try to have consistency in all of the names so that if you type in Big Picture Psych, you might stumble upon my Instagram. You might stumble upon my website. You might stumble upon my Substack, but it's all the same.
No, I mean, I love that. Yeah. I always thought that was a good name.
Yeah.
All right. So our topic for today, I wanted to talk about, in my mind, I call it like Whitney's book report.
I like that.
I was always like a good student. This is coming as a huge shock to everybody, but the idea that like I read a book and now I need to write a book report, you know, so Whitney's book report. This week is Me But Better by Olga Khazan, who is a staff writer at The Atlantic, and this came out this year. I got it as a gift not too long ago. So
nice.
I finally finished it, and I thought that it would be like just really good for us to talk about because there's just like a million different directions we can go about this. So synopsis, it's nonfiction. She is a journalist, but she had done this long form piece, I think, for The Atlantic about she basically starts out saying, I don't think I have a good personality. And is it possible that I could change it?
Okay.
I found it so relatable in the like, we all have things about ourselves that, you know, we dislike. And I think to a varying degree, you sort of feel like either like who you are is sort of working for you, and maybe to other degrees, like I can relate to like maybe the way I am isn't always working for me. And so that was kind of where she came at it. And then it sounds like, you know, her editors and other people approached her like, let's build this out and build a whole book about it. So, you know, she starts out kind of laying out the problem, which is that, you know, she could be like really emotional and essentially all of like the little things in life, all of the little traffic jams and, you know, mistakes or things that don't go your way, they would just like really throw her off, and she'd end up in a puddle of tears and alcohol at the end of the day, and this was the worst day and everything went wrong and everything is wrong with my life and nothing is going right. And then her coping was, you know, to cry a lot, to drink a lot, and to yell at her boyfriend a lot.
Okay.
And so there's some clues in there that like, you know, maybe this could work better.
Sure.
And then she kind of goes into like a deep dive in personality. What is it? What does that mean for us? And is it possible to change your personality? So I flagged this page, it's on page 17, she, oh no, wait, wrong page. Maybe the next one or the next one. Hold, please. Okay. I'm actually on page 21. It says, so what is personality? It's a habit, but it's also a reflex. Quote, personality is what you do habitually, automatically, without thinking about it, whether it's how you think about things, how you feel about things, or whether you do certain things, end quote, says Brent Roberts, a prominent personality psychologist at the University of Illinois.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, what do you think of that definition?
I think that's a good definition. I think it's robust. I think that's...
Sounds about right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because
Yeah,
it's kind of a pattern. I mean, we think about personality as like a pattern over time that's kind of been developed and solidified. And I think there's something about that makes it a little more tangible. It's like it's your first reaction. It's how you typically react to things, or it's how you things that you do without really thinking, kind of stuff like that. So patterns of behavior.
a habit, but also a reflex. The next paragraph says, your personality affects how you approach life. Do you take small inconveniences in stride, or do you see them as a personal attack? When you come across a new idea, do you recoil or thrill to it? Personality encompasses your preferences, your mood, and your interaction style, and also the texture of your soul.
Oh,
I know. So yeah, that's a direct quote. I have talked to people, like you said, there's a pervasiveness, meaning that like it extends over time, but also over situation. You kind of take yourself wherever you go.
Yep.
I have talked to people about this being kind of in your relationships, but not just what you think that means. Like you think that means like, oh, your friends and family, but I mean like your relationship to yourself, your relationship to other people, your relationship to your feelings. Like when a feeling arises, what do you do next? What do you do about it? Your relationship to the idea of the world or the future. But I do also think a caveat is good here, because as much as we say that it's like it's pervasive and you take it with you wherever you go, it's also true that it is entirely normal, would you say, to adjust how you show up depending on situations.
Yes. I think it's one of those things where you're aware maybe of how you want to have a knee-jerk reaction or what your first reaction is, and then assess the situation and decide if that is kind of you're getting the more raw version or if you're getting something that's adjusted for the situation.
Yeah, and I think we train that. Like if you work in, maybe a more corporate setting, you kind of train yourself every day that you're in meetings or in the office or whatever, you're training yourself to inhibit some of your more automatic responses that are not appropriate to that situation. So like you might work in the type of office setting where people don't swear.
Right.
I swear a lot, but then I also train myself around my kid to hold that back and not let those words slip out. So like we do kind of like train ourselves to bring out certain sides of ourselves in one place and a different side of ourselves in a different place. And we exhibit like different levels of self-control depending on the scenario.
I would agree.
Because I think you and I hear from clients or potential clients pretty often that, oh, well, but I'm different in different settings. I'm concerned that that's being talked about as like a symptom of something.
Well, I think there's a lot of, I don't think we talk about personality as much, or at least I don't think personality has gotten quite to the pop psych level or the social media level where we're accurately talking about some of that. I think most of the time if you hear personality talked about, pop culture, movies, whatever, is more of a negative or a personality disorder. So I don't think that people recognize the I want to say the normalcy, I guess, but just like what the aspects of a personality are. Like, yeah, you have your personality and it is slightly shaped and slightly different in certain ways. And that doesn't mean you're being fake or a chameleon or any of that stuff. It's just that's what we all do. We all have those people where maybe we're more authentic or more raw, and maybe there's other places that we want. And work is a common place where you're not super raw or authentic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that we miss out in the discourse out there. I think we miss how rich the normal range of personality is. So she bases the book on it's called the Big Five personality model. If I put you on the spot.
The 5 factor?
Yeah.
Neuroticism.
Okay.
Conscientiousness.
Nice.
Openness.
Yeah.
It's not extrovert, but there is some.
It's extroversion.
Extroversion. I know this because for the evaluations that I do for the adoptions, I have to use like the NEO, which is like assess of the 5.
Yeah,
assertiveness.
No. Agreeableness.
Agreeable. I was so close.
Well, and as you were saying it, I was like having that 7 dwarfs effect where like now you've forgotten which ones you've said, so you start circling back, and by the time you can't remember.
Always Doc. Wait, I said Doc already. Yeah. Wait, it's Doc. Wait, it's Dopey. It's Doc, right?
You cannot say all 7 dwarfs. It's impossible. So yeah, you can remember them with ocean.
Oh, right. Yes.
Openness to experience. Conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So I don't know. Do you want to go through it with me and like, do you want to like say more about yourself in these domains? I'm happy to do it. We can interview me if you want.
Oh, I haven't taken any of those personality tests, but my guess.
I just took one because she takes it in the book and I wanted to do it too.
Oh.
Okay, continue.
Okay, well then we will do yours of what you experienced from the test, but I'll do mine off the cuff. I would say I'm probably pretty high on extroversion.
I would think you would be.
I would also say neuroticism is pretty prominent.
Okay.
I would say
that one is the only one that they rate inverted.
Oh, so if I'm neurotic, it's low?
Yeah, so they'll do it. I think it depends on the measure, but like she talks about it sometimes in terms of emotional control. And so if you're like high on extroversion, it'll switch it around so that it's like, oh well, you're low on emotional control or that sort of thing. So that way each, because that one's the only one that the trait itself, if you're high on it, that would be like kind of a negative factor for your well-being.
Right. Sure. And I should say for listeners too, it's not always that you want to necessarily be high or low. This isn't like a test like where you want to get the highest score possible. It's like, what do you think is like a stronger trait of yours versus not? I would say openness to experience is something that I have to work at. I wouldn't say it's something that comes naturally, but I think I'm conscientious that it's good to be open to new experiences, but I'm an anxious girly, so I'm not always really open to that stuff. And my husband would always, he will always say, oh, well, Paige has never tried it, so she's going to tell you she doesn't like it, but she hasn't tried it. And then when I try it, I usually like it. Not always, but he was introducing me to a lot of foods that I had never tried. And I just, when we first started dating, and then he's a little more adventurous with that anyway. And he's always like, well, she hasn't tried it, so she doesn't like it.
Yeah, my husband jokes that when he met me, all I ate was chicken tenders. Okay, listeners, that was like 17 years ago, so very different now.
Well, and for me, my husband had traveled, like his dad was in the Navy for 30 years. So he lived in Japan. He's traveled to many different European countries, visiting his dad at different ports and stuff like that. So that man had a taste of a different life than I did coming from upstate New York.
Is it fair that like we could probably put anything in front of him?
He'd try it.
He would try anything.
He'd try pretty much anything.
I think my husband would try anything.
Yeah,
too.
like the thought of an omakase, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, I want to be cool with that, but just to have to give over control and be like, nope, I don't know. Like, nope, Dan, that would be his dream. Like, oh yeah, just a great chef just putting anything in front of me, telling me it's delicious. It's like, whew. So
yeah, we'll send the boys out on a mandate.
And we'll eat chicken tenders and drink wine.
So you did openness, extroversion,
conscientiousness.
Do you think you're conscientious? I think we should break them all out.
I think kind of to a fault. I think that's why I'm so anxious about things. I'm too conscientious. I'm too focused on other people.
Okay. So I guess let's go in the ocean order just so that I can remember what I've said. So openness to experience. This one is very interesting to me because I guess I thought when I took the little self-assessment, I kind of thought this one was going to come out sort of low for me because this one has to do with, I associate it in my mind with like adventurousness or spontaneity. Mm-hmm. But in actuality, I think I had like a slightly too limited understanding of this going in. So it actually can also mean, do you like reading books about things you know nothing about? Mm-hmm. Or do you like watching movies that like dramas or movies with like a deeper message or that ask questions about the world? Like, do you like, new ideas about how to look at the world, new perspectives?
Yes.
I love that stuff.
Yes.
Like, do you like to have deep probing conversations with people? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think in some ways, this is why we went into this field. I couldn't learn enough about psychology.
Well, that's what I say. Everybody at grad school, when they would start the class and say, well, why are you here today? Or why did you choose to go this field? Everybody would always say, I want to help people. And mine was always, this was the thing that kept my interest. I was curious, and it's been something I can be curious about continuously. So yes, that's my answer.
I'm the exact same way. So, openness doesn't have to be about like, do you want to go skydiving next week? It can actually just be about, can you get energized by things that are new, challenging, that expand, how you see the world. And sometimes it'll expand how you see the world by going skydiving. And sometimes it's about reading a book about something you don't know anything about.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like the willingness to be open. So it's not, are you just kind of free will open to anything, spontaneity, but it's, are you willing to try something new, to learn something?
Absolutely. And I think part of Olga's question in writing the book, part of my question in reading it is, can we change our personalities? I would say over the last 20 years, my openness has completely changed. Mm-hmm. From that girl who only ate chicken tenders to like now we plan vacations almost entirely around where we're going to eat. Mm-hmm. And, at this point, it's like, oh, did an idea come up in a podcast and I didn't know anything about it? I go to the library and I try to get a book about it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me happy. So I feel like in this domain, I have completely grown.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I think, your like willingness to try new foods or like even the ways that you and I talk about our field. Mm-hmm. Like we're pretty challenging of some of the orthodoxies in this field.
Yes.
And I don't think I would be having those conversations with somebody if they weren't like opening up like curiosity or skepticism about, oh, that's just the way things are always done. Mm-hmm. That's just how it is.
Yeah, I think going back to your original question of like, can we change our personality? I think it's a lot of dependent on, not dependent, but I think certain experiences really can shape that, right? Like, I think that part of me, if I look at why I was maybe a little more closed off to things, is because I grew up in a very small town, you know, like I grew in rural upstate New York. I went to college in a place that was a little bit bigger, but all of it kind of matched my worldview. And then I came to a large city, and that really shaped a lot. I went to grad school where I was purposely told to challenge ideas or think deeply or, you know, like get a deeper understanding of things. So yeah, I think that can really shape how you do things. And then obviously more trying of experiences. Like maybe I did only eat chicken nuggets because that's what I was exposed to. But then, hey, somebody puts this here. And I think part of the reason what helped me open up to more of that stuff was my husband was always very excited about it, and he was never rude about it. He was just like, this is really exciting. I think you're going to like it. And it made it easier to want to try some of that. And so now I think that's more of my personality now, but I wouldn't say that was what I was at 21.
Yeah, completely. You know, this is one of those traits that can correlate with like a greater sense of happiness or well-being.
Okay.
I think because when you're open, you sort of allow more things to come into your orbit that can make your life have a sense of enhanced like meaning or joy. But of course, I think with any of these, it is possible, I think, to be too high on this.
Sure.
So like there's that saying, like, don't have such an open mind that your brain falls out. So if you go really in an extreme way in this trait, now you're starting to consider ideas that don't have basis in reality or that don't have anything to back them up. And so you can really, if you're kind of like leaving the stratosphere in this, you might encounter some problems.
Yeah.
All right, so that's openness. C, conscientiousness. I am super high on this. That's not a surprise to me at all. This is like the defining feature of my personality. So my husband's workplace did have you heard of the DISC profile?
Yes.
We talked about this.
Yeah.
And this was many years ago. I was like so cranky. He's like, oh yeah, I'm going to work today. We're doing this like personality assessment at work. And I was like, oh, really? You guys think you can do what I can do?
I get the same way. Don't worry.
Like, that's my field. I was like, okay, good luck. And then he comes home and it's DISC, D-I-S-C. He comes home with his profile. He's like, yeah, they said I'm an S. And he reads it out to me. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That describes you to a T. He goes, here's the one I think you are. And he reads the one for C. Is it conscientious?
I can't remember what. I think the one is like discover, one is like innovator, one is something. I can't remember.
D is definitely dominant.
Dominant. Okay. No, that's a different personality measure used in corporate.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think C is conscientious. And it's like, oh, yep, that's me.
So what is conscientiousness?
Conscientiousness is to be, let's see, careful, I would say, orderly, to plan ahead. It's a lot of executive functioning. What comes to mind when you hear that?
Conscientiousness, I think of like caring and like thoughtful is like what the word brings to mind, and knowing that there's like I think an awareness like of bigger things. So I think that speaks to like the organization, like to zoom out, to be conscious of multiple things, holding a lot, planning.
So Olga writes, conscientiousness means getting shit done, never skipping leg day, jumping face first into your inbox and not emerging until the thing reaches zero. I do have a zero inbox. Or the heat death of the universe, whichever comes first. Personality tests tend to measure the trait by asking about organizational skills, efficiency, and a tendency to stick to one's goals.
That tracks for you.
Yeah. Conscientious types tend to be morning people and spend more time working. They don't tend to procrastinate. Yeah. So yeah, this
that makes sense.
It's definitely, it's like paying attention to the details, like you said about like, I like the thoughtfulness part of it. But then, yeah, I mean, the dark side of conscientiousness is perfectionism, rigidity, losing the forest for the trees.
Sure.
I am guilty of all of those things. You know, it was interesting to read this chapter because, you know, she recognizes that she's a highly conscientious person. And she's like, so what do I do about this chapter? Should I try to increase it? Should I try to decrease it? You know, and I feel like when I'm working on myself, it's actually sometimes like trying to go against it in some ways, like trying to be a little bit more like less cautious or less careful, a little bit more spontaneous or messy, like kind of like what we were talking about with the play. Like that's the exact
all tracks. Right. Wait, there's no organization, there's no plan, there's no you just want me to get messy? Yes.
Messy and don't know where I'm going with
yes.
this?
No plan? Yes.
Yeah, and for me, like letting go of how things should be or how they're supposed to be, what would be better than what we are doing. As a parent, this gets challenged for me a lot, but it's good for me, you know, because I don't like it when, you know, somebody is sort of like looking over my shoulder and saying, oh, you could do that a better way,
right.
or whatever. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to figure it out. Okay, could you just back off and let me problem solve? So like when I'm parenting, I'm like, even if I'm like, there's a better way to do this, I'm like, zip it. Don't say that. Just let them muddle through. They get more out of the experience of problem solving on their own than of you jumping in to be the expert all the time. I work on this.
That's one of many reasons why I could not be a parent to a child.
It's just, you know what it does is it just like holds up a mirror to all of your, you know, all the things about yourself that, because nothing about you is ideal. I don't even know what the ideal level of conscientiousness is. It's just a sort of yin and yang of like sometimes be neat and sometimes be messy.
Well, I think there's a time and place kind of thing, knowing when that's beneficial, knowing when it's not, and knowing like when you're talking about it being uncomfortable, you know, it's uncomfortable. That doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean it's something you should stop. It's going against what is maybe natural to you, that first instinct, like Olga says, but that is not helpful in that moment. Like you're playing and you're trying to do something. So I think being conscious of when something feels uncomfortable, but also having the insight and awareness of like, does this need to change, or do I just need to kind of tolerate the discomfort because this is just something that doesn't come natural to me?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think we mentioned this when we were talking to Stephanie Nelson about things that can look like autism, but definitely, I don't know if we said this then, but or maybe it was coming up when I was reading the book, but what Olga Hassan is essentially describing when she talks about low conscientiousness, this is what a lot of people are calling us about and wondering if it's ADHD. And it's a big concern of mine that low conscientiousness is within the range of normal human behavior. To be somebody who is disorganized or you know, who doesn't enjoy putting things in order, who is a little bit messier or more go with the flow, jump at a chance, and don't always think it through all the way. Like that is a normal way to be a person. And that kind of person brings a lot to a community.
Yes.
People who, you know, dive in and, you know, I remember even like Jose Andres when he started World Central Kitchen, he said, "Don't think, just go." He didn't plan it all out. He said, "Just go, and you'll figure it out when you get there." So I'm sure there's a fair amount of chaos.
Yeah,
but like I would hold that up as being that was like admirable in a lot of places. So I think low conscientiousness, we're just like very aware of, oh, I'm a person who, you know, just isn't high on this trait. But do we have to make that a mental disorder?
Well, that's where I think we've grappled with this in many episodes or for many years, just in our conversations of, what qualifies as a disorder, versus like discomfort or not optimal. I think there has been more of a awareness of therapy, and I think it oftentimes gets muddled of like, well, wait, do I need to go to therapy because I have to have a disorder? Or wait, am I going to optimize myself? So this kind of idea of like, well, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to just be aware and let that be? Or do you feel like you need to fix something? I think that's a big question mark and very messy right now as people start to as mental health becomes less stigmatized, as it becomes more of a topic in social media, stuff like that.
Well, right, exactly. Because I could see how a therapist would be helpful, like Olga's going on this journey on her own to try to change some of the areas of personality that aren't working for her. She could have done that in the context of therapy. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't necessarily mean, like, if you say, oh, this element of my personality isn't working for me, maybe it's like my low conscientiousness is not working for me. I'm missing deadlines. My house is very messy and I can't find stuff and I'm running late and all this stuff. To say it's not working for me, I think is maybe accurate, and that can be a really admirable thing. I mean, when you and I are sitting here and identifying parts of our personality that don't always work for us, that's something I hold up as like try to be humble about yourself. And so if you're saying that doesn't work for me and you want a therapist or a coach or somebody to try to help with that, why not? I'm just not sure that we need to take it as far as calling it, a mental disorder when this is part of the variation of how humans are.
Right. And it's not to go on a tangent of, insurance or medically necessary, but I think oftentimes if Olga's coming to somebody saying, hey, maybe I want to work on this. This isn't working for me. Maybe if they do take insurance, maybe they have to list on there a disorder to define if it's medically necessary to get it covered. And then, it kind of runs with that versus if we were just taking that out of the picture, I wonder if that is something that would be talked about differently, maybe. I don't think that's the only thing. I think there's a different wave that's influencing some of that I don't quite have my fingers around or understand. But yeah, maybe if we could kind of just be like, yeah, maybe therapy is just there to, if you want to work on something or improve it, great, but it's not like you're broken.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have glorified the psychological diagnosis.
Yes.
Technically the psychiatric diagnosis. And I think we've gotten short-sighted into the idea that, like, if it's not a diagnosis, it somehow isn't important, or it somehow isn't something you can that isn't valid. So you're right.
Maybe in the accommodation space too. Like, you can't have any adjustments unless you have a disorder listed. You have to have it as a disability, it's all these things that are fitting under this umbrella of, disordered.
All right. So then the next one, any other thoughts on that? Next one is extroversion. Another one that she writes about how it's correlated with well-being, that like the higher you are in extroversion, generally you can see kind of like ripple effects into physical health, a sort of general sense of mental well-being and everything, and how, I think that we don't have to like throw Susan Cain's Quiet book just in the garbage, like, oh, we all read Quiet. We're all like, oh yeah, introversion. I recognize that. Oh wait, garbage. No, I don't think it's like that. I think we actually got a little bit too like locked in terms of like, I am an introvert, I am an extrovert. And what she writes about in this book is just, even if you're somebody who kind of prefers your own company, who likes to recharge alone, it can be beneficial to get out of your comfort zone. Another book I love is called I'm Sorry I'm Late, I Didn't Want to Come by Jessica Pan.
I haven't read that book, but I love that phrase.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, she got at the beginning of the book, she writes about getting really depressed. I think she had either left a job or been fired and was in a city where she didn't know anybody. And, she calls a friend and says, I've been Googling online and I think I might have ADHD. I have no motivation and I can't concentrate on anything. And her friend says, do you think maybe you're depressed? And she's like, oh my God. And then goes on this like quest to get out of her comfort zone. And so it's the same as this book. Olga also, they both go to improv class.
Oh, I love improv classes.
Do you love improv classes?
I loved improv. It was my favorite class in college.
No, you took improv in college?
I sure did. It was so fun.
Okay, now yell, give me a fruit. Give me a profession.
Apple. Psychology. No, I think it was so fun. And I like improv. I don't do any more of it, but that class was so fun because everybody could collectively understand that they were nervous. And then they could also collectively understand, but we just have to work through that. And then we all got to this place where it was so fun, where it was just like we were laughing. I made some great friends from that class. Like, it was the highlight of my week that semester. And everybody on campus always talked about improv classes. I think we had to do like a fine arts requirement, and improv was one of the popular ones for it because the school I went to had other fine arts. Like they had dance and music and stuff like that. So it was a popular class, but there was this like collective, like, okay, we're all nervous, we're all going to work through it, and then we will laugh a lot, and when we had a lot of fun, and this is improv.
And you think of yourself as an extrovert. I think of you as an extrovert.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of happiest when you're around like a group, a crowd.
My favorite part about college was every weekend going to meet somebody new. Like, I specifically didn't go to college with I had a group of 5, and of the 4 of us that went to college, they all went together, and I purposely went separate because I wanted something different.
Wow, look at you.
I was only an hour away from them, but
Still, when you're in college, an hour is an eternity.
It was an eternity. And yeah, no, I mean, I think that's why I came to Chicago. I knew nobody here, like it was, it's a 10-hour, 12-hour drive from where I grew up. And, I wanted something new. So yeah, I definitely extrovert.
I am not like that. But I think we've talked about it on this podcast, like when loneliness creeps in and you don't realize it. So even being an introvert who's like, I am very comfortable alone, there is such a thing as too much of a good thing.
Oh, for sure.
And so I think, if you think of yourself as an introvert and you're wondering about this category of personality, I think on one hand, you sort of embrace it because you are who you are. And on the other hand, I think you have to look to see, like, is it working for me right now? Because I will get in patterns where I'm just too alone. And then I wonder why I feel blue. Mm-hmm. And I'm not getting, I don't feel like I have anything new to say to, at the end of the day, because I didn't encounter anybody to, I have no stories, or nobody gave me a new way to look at anything, or I didn't, talk to anybody else. And so, I think getting a little bit too insulated and too comfortable, I think is like the invitation is, okay, how do you as, more of an introvert just stretch this a little bit? You don't have to invite strangers over to your house, but you could invite a couple of people that you know well and have a dinner party. Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Same thing with extroversion. You don't want to be uncomfortable having alone time. If that's something that you thrive on is being with people, but can't really tolerate being by yourself, is that working for you? It's not saying you have to spend time alone, as like an extrovert, but what does the situation call for? Because I would definitely identify as an extrovert who also likes to have downtime, like there's something beneficial about being alone or being bored or, like stuff like that.
Boy, I agree with that too. Yeah, being able to spend time in your own company and being able to tolerate boredom are very, very useful, helpful things.
Yeah.
So after extroversion is agreeableness. This one, okay, I fully expected my test to come out low in this domain. And I think this is a big part of my problem in life. I really do. But it ended up coming out middle. And what I think happened was that my disagreeableness was then kind of averaged against like altruism and like do-gooder kind of qualities. Because when it asked me about like, I forget what it was, but like, do you give to charity or do you try to help people in need? I'm like, yes, you know, and in fact, like that is something that keeps me going in our work. You know, because some of our work, like when we are assessing, you know, veterans, sometimes we are working with some extremely vulnerable, disenfranchised people. And, you know, even just like I will sometimes like make sure they get a bottle of water and a granola bar on the way out. Like that sort of thing keeps me going. And so it was those things that then I ended up in the middle on this because that averaged out the times when I am very grumpy and not the sunniest personality.
Got it.
Where do you think you are on agreeable?
Does agreeable also have to do with boundaries?
I don't know. What do you mean?
Like, are you able to set boundaries? Like, are you able to care for yourself as much as you care for others? Like, that kind of stuff? Or are you able to, like, kind of manage conflict? Like, if it's not a, like, kind of like in child rearing, like maybe as an example, like, do you set boundaries when it needs to be set? Can you set rules, kind of stuff like that? Or is that maybe neuroticism?
I don't know. Okay, I'm going to read this and we'll come back to that. It says, this is Olga. It says, I scored about average on agreeableness, the trait whose paragons are people, selfless, cooperative, modest, sympathetic, trusting, and nice. So I'm not sure about your boundaries one.
No, I'm thinking about something else maybe. But so that kind of, I asked about that because I wondered if that would fit into my answer. But that description reminds me so much of one of my close friends from high school. That is her. Like, I would say she is very agreeable. She is like the kindest human you will ever meet. She never has a bad thing to say about anybody. And my snarky side doesn't always align with that when I'm like, well, I want to snark about something. And she's like, but let's think about how nice they can be. And that's not how she does it because she has a spicy side. We wouldn't be friends if we weren't. But like, I would say I'm somewhere in the middle with that because I can be a little cynical at times.
Same.
I can be a little critical at times. I would say I don't think I'm in this profession if I'm not caring in some way. I'm also a Cancer, if anybody astrology-wise. Very caring. Very kind. However, I think it's like one of those things where if you listen or if I'm in a room where I can just maybe be a little more off the cuff, I might be a little spicier.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a level in which we get along. I mean, look at us starting this podcast. An interesting thing that Olga points out, she says, agreeableness can be hard to change, though. Part of disagreeableness, it seems, is not wanting to be agreeable. So it's sort of self-referential.
Right.
It says, agreeableness, in fact, has no fun points. She's talking about like trying to improve on this. She says it's the arduous march of empathizing with your enemies, managing your anger, and putting others first. It's doing things for other people, usually at your own expense and often with no thanks in return. Some readers might register how much this description sounds exactly like parenting. She says a big part of agreeableness is empathy. Easy enough when it comes to people we like, but when we face opposition, empathizing can feel like losing an argument. I feel like what she's talking about there is this kind of like, I feel a tension on this domain where, like, mostly when it comes to parenting, I can do this really well. And I do have this, like, altruistic side of me.
Mm-hmm.
But that part about, like, losing an argument.
That's what I just was like, I was having a literal just like, I have a hard time with that. I will tell you, my favorite moments is an I told you so.
Oh. I feel like once I get into the domain of ideas, now my conscientiousness comes out, and I want to talk about, like, either how things really are or what the evidence says.
Sure.
And it's hard to put that part aside to just sort of be like, to just be like, to just get along, go along to get along.
Yeah.
You know, to me, but, you know, but that's not quite right. And, you know, I have to kind of work against that, I think, in everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and on my worst days, I'm just sort of like a little huffy and a little bit like, everybody just leave me alone. I don't feel like being agreeable right now.
Sure. Yeah. And I think you're bringing up a good point that everybody's going to have. I think everybody should think about these 5 traits as like you're kind of there's like a dial from high to low. There's not one place you should be. And then each one is going to play off of each other a little bit. So depending on your level of neuroticism or conscientiousness, it's going to impact how you are agreeable in one situation or another, which is why personality is so rich and dynamic. And there's no one way to be, and there's no one ideal way to be. Like, we're talking about agreeableness, and in certain situations this is lovely and really helpful and maybe prioritized, but there are plenty of situations where not having any disagreeableness is actually really unhelpful. Like, you don't want to be just, you know, too agreeable to a fault.
That's 100% right. If you put a bunch of super high agreeableness people, like, on a board or on a committee to decide something, you may get nowhere. You may end up with groupthink, where one person says it and we all just feel like we should go along with it without critically examining that decision. You know, I think I saw somewhere something that said, like, the person who's disagreeing in a meeting cares more about trying to get something right than about being liked.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something to be said for that. Now, I'm imagining everybody just called to mind the person who is just such a pain in meetings and just seems like they can't get out of themselves. And so taken to an extreme. Of course not. But, you know, the idea that, like, it might be worth disagreeing sometimes to get to a better outcome. So, yeah, I mean, it's not always just go to the very top of this and then you'll live a great life forever.
Yeah.
And sliding the dial a little up and a little down depending on your circumstances and your habits. Yeah.
I think that's where I was thinking about the boundaries, because when I deal with personality, it's in those assessments and they comes up of, are you going to be able to do the right thing for your child in that moment, even if that's not what they like, or even if that doesn't feel caring, right? So, like, the idea of having to set a rule or say no to something, even though this is in your best interest. You know, you may not think that I'm caring about you in this, or it may not be the agreeable thing to go along with, but I have to hold that boundary for you.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, a lot of parenting is that.
Because you don't want to be just agreeable in that kind of situation all the time. You have to always hold, you know, like at some point, gosh, I can imagine at different points during the day. No, you cannot have cake for dinner. Not tonight. Maybe another night, but not tonight.
Yeah, my kid had a splinter in her foot yesterday. Oh. I mean, I'm sure as she was saying it really hurt. We had to get the splinter out. Well, it hurts more to get the splinter out. And then eventually, it kept saying, like, it's going to feel better once we get it out. It was a big old splinter right in her heel. So every time she put her heel down, I think it hurt. You know, so it was just a very tangible example of, like,
well, your first splinters too. Like, it's the concept of that kind of
she
pain.
had no idea what it was.
Yeah. The tweezers come out. You have to poke at it. You have to dig in. Ugh. Yeah.
No, it was painful for everybody involved. Yes, exactly. So I think it's a rich topic. And then the last one is neuroticism. It's like, it's too bad that it comes last because this one is like the hardest one to talk about. I feel like we've been going a while here, so if we can't deal with it now, we will do another episode on
Sure.
neuroticism. I am not in favor of taking this word away. I had a client tell me that their therapist was like, oh, we will never use that word. And I'm like, I know words take on connotations, but this is widely used in the personality literature, and it does mean something.
Right.
And so we can try to take away our dehumanization and our judgment, and our, failure of empathy around it. But it can still be helpful to be honest about like what neuroticism is, and so like I mentioned before, she talks about it being correlated with emotional control. So she noticed her neuroticism coming out in this kind of like, I'm angry and I'm sad and it was the worst day and it's never going to work out. I think of it as being kind of like a sister to anxiety and depression, and like some elements of like pessimism. What do you think of?
I think of anxiety and like the tight, the control, the just like the wound tight. If you poke me, it's gonna feel so intense, dependent on how wound tight I am. And that doesn't necessarily have to be anxious. It could be angry. It could be depressed. It's just like, how am I going to experience that poke in that moment?
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, you think of yourself as being high on neuroticism. Yeah. I can't remember what my score was, but I think I was sort of like mid high on this, or like somewhere in between middle and high. I think this is the trait that I probably try to work on the most, is like anxiety management, mood management. Like I've been thinking about it a lot lately, how to look around and see kind of the good in every day, or the good in the moment that you're having, or how to feel a sense of gratitude when you wake up in the morning that you get to live another day. Trying to cultivate that for myself without like, then my disagreeableness comes in and I go, ugh, and I roll my eyes at like, ugh, I have to like force myself to be this, to be this person. But then people who do that are living well, and I want to live well, and I don't want to be unhappy. I want to be happy. And so it's yeah.
I feel like
it's a journey.
It's a journey. I feel like neuroticism is one of the traits that gets maybe the bad rap kind of thing, or it's not really seen. It's hard to see. We've reframed most of these as like, well, if you're high on this, it could be seen good in this situation. But if you're low on this, it could also be like, there's a reframe, I think, for most of them. I think it's harder to look at neuroticism and say how it works in our culture, that I think is very productive, very, there's no room for anxiety or depression or things like that. I think that's an anti-productive kind of thing, or it's like, oh, it makes things harder.
True.
I think there's a lot of push against those things when there can be some information drawn from those things. We could benefit from tolerating anxiety or depression. However, there's also a lot of ways in which it can go awry. So I get why we try to curb it at times.
Definitely, like, too much of it all the time, you're going to notice it because you're going to have this sort of like general sense of misery, but I love the journey she goes on in this book, where towards the end, she starts asking, but what if sometimes my anxiety is actually giving me a message I need to hear?
Yes.
And how am I supposed to hear which anxiety is serving me and telling me deep down, you don't want this.
Yes.
Or this isn't right for you.
I like to think of anxiety as a friend who means well, but the delivery is all wrong. Very dramatic. Means well, dramatic.
Yeah, I like that. And so I think we can make a case for some anxiety. And I can make a case for some, like, not like debilitating clinical depression, but some days of feeling low, just because I think sometimes that's sort of true to the circumstance. Maybe it's true to a sense of loss or a sense of confusion that we can't necessarily solve.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we have to kind of honor that and let it be, as long as it's not extreme, as long as it's not causing us to not get out of bed.
The book you recommended to me, Wintering, the whole concept of like we have to go through this cycle where we have to sometimes just winter and learn from that. And you can't learn from it unless you let it be. If you're always trying to get rid of it, you can't get the message.
Exactly. Oh, I loved that book.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wintering. I'll have to look up the author.
Oh, I can't remember. Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that there can be a season for something, that this author was going through something that was a loss and that was inherently depressing, and the idea that she was going through a winter in her life. But then, you know, throughout the book, she finds all of these kind of wonderful things about winter, and she ends up doing like these cold plunges where she's sort of trying to go like basically neck deep in the cold and the, you know, so trying to let it be what it is, but not more than it is.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of therapy. You know,
I love winter.
I don't know. We could probably do a whole episode on neuroticism, and I'm sure this was confusing. It's like generally, if you're walking around really wound up tight, everything's setting you off, everything's making you anxious, you're miserable. It's a sign that something's out of balance, and this could be improved upon. I know Olga does like meditation and yoga, which I fully get it. I actually think that it's exactly right. I think the meditation especially.
For sure.
I think it's exactly what sort of the medicine for this is. And simultaneously, within reason, some anxiety is helpful.
Yeah.
Some depression is a sign of something.
Yeah. No, I think we've talked about all of these traits, the big five, ocean, and everybody's going to be at a different meter, like how you present to the world. You're going to adjust depending on the circumstances. And yes, there are some ways in which you can tweak your personality in certain ways with some consistent habits or things like that. Are you drastically going to change who you are? Probably not. And we don't want that. We don't want one carbon copy of a human. There's a reason we need diversity. There's a reason why we need those things that are different. So I hope that people can take away that her message, I think, was like, yeah, I like her title. It's me, but better. It's not me different. It's just tweaked. And she maybe played a little bit, sounds like maybe played a little bit more with neuroticism than other traits, but you might just be able to tweak certain things. I don't think you're going to drastically change all five factors.
Yeah. Yeah, and she did a really nice job of going into the confusing question of whether you're truly changing or whether or not you're kind of like faking it till you make it or pretending to do something different or whatever. And that is not a question that we really have the answers to right now. But I can say, I mean, you and I are looking at like how we've developed over 10 years, 20 years. I would say I am different than I was 10 or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And some of that is due to intentional things I've done, and some of it's due to just the way life acted upon me.
Yeah.
So I do believe that change is possible, and whether or not it's like true, quote unquote, or like real, quote unquote, I don't know if that's the right question, you know? So
No.
I have it here. It's Wintering, The Power of Rest and Retreat in Difficult Times by Catherine May.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the title kind of says it. So, all right, we've been going a while.
Okay.
Anything else we should add?
No, I think we'll wrap up on this and we'll keep talking about these topics. But yeah, I hope people walk away learning a little bit more about the big five and how that shows up in your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll see you next time.
Tune in next time. Bye.
Bye. This podcast is for informational purposes only.
It is not a substitute for treatment of any kind.